She poured chemicals into a kid's pool and called it sanitation. Marilyn Harper, the HOA president, had ruled the neighborhood with threats and fines, but this time her actions crossed a line. Nathan Reynolds, a Marine veteran and father, tried to follow the rules until the system failed to protect his children, and he made a choice no one saw coming. But just wait until you hear how this shocking standoff unfolded and why. In the end, justice didn't knock. It kicked the door in. Nathan Reynolds had always believed in order. 10 years in the Marines taught him that routine kept the world from unraveling. Wake up early, make your bed, respect the chain of command, serve with purpose, protect what matters. When he came back home for good, all he wanted was something quiet, a place where the hardest part of the day was mowing the lawn or flipping burgers on a Saturday. He found it, or thought he did, in a sleepy suburb tucked outside Tulsa, Oklahoma. Rows of nearly identical homes with clean driveways and waving flags. It felt safe, predictable. He and Sarah bought a modest fixer-upper at the end of Maple Ridge Lane. Yellow shutters, wrap-around porch, enough backyard space for a garden, and a little inflatable pool for the kids. Jason was 5. Emma was 7, both at that magical age where cardboard boxes could become castles and hose water felt like a trip to the beach. On their second weekend in the house, Nathan set up the pool. Simple, round, blue plastic, filled it halfway with cool tap water, and let the sun warm it up. Emma squealed, Jason cannonballed and wearing his superhero trunks. Sarah brought out lemonade. It felt like a commercial. Perfect. Nathan grilled hot dogs. He leaned back in his folding chair, bare feet in the grass, listening to the sound of his children laughing. This, he thought, is peace. No gunfire, no sandstorms, no alarms. Just cicadas, the smell of charcoal, and the low hum of summer heat. But peace, true peace, is a fragile thing, and it ended the moment Marilyn Harper appeared. She didn't knock, just showed up at the edge of their yard like she belonged there, clutching a clipboard in one hand and a pink leash in the other. At the end of the leash, a tiny white poodle with rhinestones on its collar. Marilyn looked like someone's grandmother. Floral blouse, straw sun hat, shoes without a single speck of dirt, but her expression didn't match the outfit. Her smile was polite but tight, eyes sharp, scanning everything like a security camera. She didn't introduce herself right away, just looked at the pool, then at Nathan. That pool isn't in the neighborhood guidelines, she said, her voice light but firm, like sugar over stone. Nathan stood up, wiped his hands on a towel. "I'm sorry," he asked, not confrontational, just surprised. The HOA, Homeowners Association, page 4, section 3.1. Temporary water structures over 18 inches high must be pre-approved by the board. Nathan blinked. It's a kid's pool. They're 5 and 7. Marilyn smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Rules are rules, Mr. Reynolds. Only then did she introduce herself. Marilyn Harper, president of the HOA. If you need a copy of the handbook, I can have one printed and left on your porch. Then she turned and walked off, heels clicking neatly against the concrete. Nathan watched her go. The kids kept playing. The poodle barked once and was shushed. Sarah stepped beside him. "Who was that?" "Neighborhood Welcome Committee, I guess." He tried to laugh it off, but something in her tone lingered, like a warning hidden inside a smile. He thought she was just a lonely old woman with too much time on her hands. Harmless. He was wrong. The first letter arrived 4 days after the pool went up. It came folded neatly in a plain white envelope, tucked into their mailbox between a local coupon flyer and Sarah's yoga subscription catalog. Nathan didn't think much of it at first, just another neighborhood notice, maybe a welcome message. But when he opened it, he saw the letterhead, Maple Ridge Homeowners Association, Arial font, perfect margins, dry language, violation, unauthorized temporary water structure, fine, $200. Please address this matter within 7 calendar days to avoid additional penalties. Nathan read it twice, then a third time. It felt absurd. A $200 fine for a kiddie pool. He set the letter on the counter, chuckled quietly, and walked outside where the kids were drawing chalk rockets on the sidewalk. The pool was still up, still clean. No noise, no mess. Just a small circle of water and 2 laughing kids. Sarah came in later that evening. He handed her the letter. She read it and shook her head, half amused. "Let me guess," she said, setting it down. "Marilyn." Nathan nodded. "She's just a lonely old woman with a ruler and a power complex," Sarah said, trying to brush it off. "Ignore it. It'll go away." But it didn't. A week later, another envelope. Same header, second notice. Fine increased to $400. Failure to comply may result in further enforcement action. The letters kept coming. Quiet, predictable, like a metronome. $600. $800. Each one colder than the last. No names, no explanation. Just the fine and the rule it claimed was broken. Nathan started stacking them in a kitchen drawer. He didn't answer, didn't pay. He figured it was just noise, bureaucratic bluster. Maybe if he ignored it long enough, it would burn itself out. But Marilyn wasn't a storm. She was a slow, steady leak. At first, Nathan thought he was imagining it. He'd catch a glimpse of something out the window, a silhouette at dusk, a figure lingering by the hedges. Once, when he came home from the store, he noticed the garbage bin had been moved 6 inches to the left. Then one night, around 10:30, he stepped onto the porch for some air. The kids were asleep. Sarah was reading in bed. Crickets were chirping loud through the trees. And there she was, Marilyn Harper, at the edge of their yard. Flashlight in one hand, clipboard in the other, measuring tape dangling from her wrist like a watch. She moved slowly, deliberately, walking the length of the fence line as if inspecting for a code violation only she could see. The beam of her flashlight danced across the grass, pausing now and then to scribble notes. Nathan stood still in the shadows, watching her. She didn't look up, she didn't speak, just wrote something on the clipboard, turned, and walked away. Back inside, Nathan stared at the closed door for a long time. Sarah looked up from her book. "You okay?" "Yeah," he said after a pause. "Just weird out there." He didn't tell her what he saw, didn't want to worry her. Maybe he was overthinking it. Maybe this was just a woman with too much time and not enough to do. Still, he made a mental note, locked the side gate, checked the security camera settings. He reminded himself of an old lesson from deployment. Don't engage unless necessary. Don't escalate unless forced. It had worked in war zones. It should work in a quiet suburb. Right? It happened on a Sunday, the kind of summer day where everything slows down, even time. The air shimmered with heat, the grass was dry and warm beneath bare feet, and the only sound louder than the cicadas was laughter coming from the backyard. Nathan stood at the grill, flipping burgers with one hand, lemonade in the other. Sarah was on the porch, barefoot, swaying gently in a wicker chair. Jason was in the pool, pretending to be a submarine. Emma danced around the edge with her sun hat flopping over her eyes, giggling like she didn't have a care in the world. For a moment, Nathan allowed himself to relax. This was why they moved here, for the stillness, for the simplicity. And then it shattered. Jason's scream cut through the air like a crack of thunder. Nathan turned, spatula still in hand. Jason had clutched his stomach and doubled over in the pool, his small face twisted in pain. Then came the coughing, violent, raw. Emma dropped to her knees beside him, hacking and gasping. Her cheeks flushed red and a rash began crawling up her arms, red and angry like burning ivy. Sarah was already running. She pulled them both from the water, wrapping them in towels, voice trembling as she called for ice, for help, for anything. Nathan followed, grabbing bucket after bucket, trying to drain the pool. The water, once clear, now carried a faint, unnatural smell. Clean at first, then sharper. Bleach? No, something harsher, something that made the back of his throat stain just from being near it. His hands began to shake. At the hospital, the waiting felt longer than the diagnosis. The ER doctor came out after an hour with the kind of look that says more than words. Chemical exposure, he said. Something strong. Chlorine-based, possibly pesticide grade. Highly concentrated. They'll be okay, but it'll take time. Sarah asked the question Nathan couldn't form. Could it have been in the water? The doctor nodded slowly. We've seen things like this before. Accidental contamination, runoff, or, sometimes deliberate exposure. Deliberate. The word sat heavy in Nathan's stomach. That night, after the kids were finally asleep, exhausted, medicated, covered in ointments, Nathan went to the garage and sat in front of his monitor. His security system had been quietly recording the backyard for weeks now, mostly squirrels and wind-blown chairs. He scrolled back, hour by hour, minute by minute. Nothing. Until 5:43 a.m. that morning. There she was, Marilyn Harper, walking slowly down the side yard. She wasn't rushed, wasn't sneaky. She moved like she belonged there. She approached the pool, looked around, crouched. In her hand, a translucent container, not large, but filled with some kind of liquid. She opened it, poured it into the water, stood, adjusted her sun hat, and walked away. No hesitation, no second glance. Nathan sat in silence. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an accident. She had come onto his property, touched what belonged to his children, and left as calmly as if she'd watered a plant. Outside, the crickets kept chirping. The world went on. But something inside Nathan shifted that night. He didn't sleep. He sat in the dark with the monitor still glowing in front of him. And for the first time in a long time, he felt something he hadn't felt since the days overseas: readiness. Nathan did everything by the book. The next morning, with Emma still too weak to get out of bed, and Jason asleep on the couch under a cool compress, he gathered the evidence: the hospital report, the diagnosis, the photos of the rash, the camera footage, frame by frame, crystal clear. He printed everything, put it in a folder, and took it to the local sheriff's office. They said someone would come by. That someone was Officer Patterson, a man with mirrored sunglasses and a coffee stain on his uniform. He parked in front of the Reynolds house like he had better places to be. Nathan led him inside, showed him the footage again, walked him through the timeline, handed him the folder. Patterson watched, flipped a few pages, didn't take notes. Finally, he gave a small shrug and said, "She claims it was disinfectant." Nathan stared at him. "What?" "Yeah," Patterson said. "She told us she noticed standing water, said she was trying to keep things sanitary. Pool wasn't approved by the HOA. She says she warned you." Nathan's voice tightened. "You saw the video. You saw the rash on my kids." "Look," Patterson sighed, leaning against the doorframe like this was all just neighborhood drama. "We're not chemists. There's no clear label on the bottle, no toxicology report, no witness to intent." "So no approval for almost killing my kids?" Nathan asked, holding up the file like it still mattered. "She didn't mean harm. That's what matters here," Patterson replied. "Intent." Nathan didn't say anything. The officer handed the folder back, nodded once, and left. No charges, no citation, not even a warning. That evening, while the sky faded from gold to gray, a familiar envelope showed up in the mailbox. Same seal, same font. Violation. Continued use of non-approved recreational structure. Penalty, $400. Second notice. Failure to comply may result in property lien. Sarah didn't say a word when Nathan showed her. She just folded the letter and set it on the kitchen counter next to a bowl of fruit no one had touched all day. Nathan stepped outside and sat on the porch, elbows on his knees, staring out at the quiet street. The sun had gone down, but the air still held heat. Mosquitoes danced in the porch light. Somewhere down the block, a sprinkler hissed to life, and across the lawn, from Marilyn Harper's porch, came the soft, unmistakable sound of wind chimes, a light, high-pitched tinkling. They used to sound peaceful. Now they sounded like laughter, not loud, not cruel, just constant, like she knew and she wasn't afraid. Nathan didn't sleep that night. He sat in the garage where the concrete floor still held a trace of the day's heat. The kids were inside, their shallow breaths rising and falling in sleep. Sarah had long since drifted off, one hand still resting protectively on Jason's back. Nathan sat alone. In one hand, an unopened beer. In the other, a worn photograph, edges curled. 4 men in desert camo, squinting against the sun, arms slung over each other's shoulders like brothers. One of them, Marcus, had said something to him once that echoed louder now than ever before. The moment you stop protecting, you stop being a man. It had stuck with him. All these years later, the words came back, not like advice, but like a challenge, because that's what it felt like now, a challenge. He had done everything right, stayed calm, filed reports, trusted the law, watched his children suffer, and watched the one responsible sit on her porch with a smile and a leash. He didn't feel rage, not anymore, just clarity. At sunrise, Nathan opened the gun safe. The Remington 870 was exactly where it had always been, clean, maintained, ready, not because he expected to use it, but because old habits die hard. He loaded it quietly. Each shell slid into place with a solid click. Then he stepped outside. The grass was cold beneath his bare feet, wet with dew. The air was still heavy with the hush that settles just before the neighborhood wakes up. He walked across the lawn, shotgun in hand, not hurried, not hiding. Across the street, Marilyn Harper was already outside. She wore a plastic sun visor. Her white poodle trotted at her feet, leash loosely held. She turned, saw him, and froze. Nathan stopped in the middle of his yard. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't speak at all. He lifted the shotgun slowly, deliberately. Boom. The first shot rang out into the sky, a sharp, thunderous crack that echoed down the block. Birds scattered from the trees. Porch lights flicked on. Then he lowered the barrel. Boom. The second round blasted into the ground near the edge of her decorative fence. Dirt kicked up in a cloud. Marilyn screamed. The leash slipped from her hand. The poodle barked, startled, and bolted toward her as she ran back inside, clutching the edge of her sun hat, stumbling over her own porch steps. Nathan stood still. 2 spent shells smoked in the grass. He didn't chase her, didn't shout. He simply turned around and walked back toward the house as the sun crested over the rooftops. For the first time in days, the wind chimes were silent. The silence didn't last long. Within minutes, the neighborhood came alive, not in the way it did on barbecue Sundays or lawn mowing Saturdays, but with tension, urgency. Porch doors creaked open, blinds snapped back. People stepped out in pajamas and bathrobes, clutching mugs of coffee or foams already aimed at recording. They came out like ants from a kicked nest, cautious, curious, murmuring. Whispers carried across the lawns. Was that a shotgun? He just stood there. Did you see her run? Nathan didn't move. He stood in the middle of the yard, hands by his sides, the shotgun resting against his shoulder. His breath was steady, eyes forward. It didn't take long for the sirens to arrive. 1, then 2, then a third, lighting up the street in red and blue. Tires screeched. Doors flung open. 3 officers approached, cautious and loud. Drop the weapon. Hands where we can see them. Nathan complied without hesitation. He set the shotgun down in the grass and slowly raised his hands. No resistance. No words. They cuffed him. Cold steel. Firm grip. From the porch, Sarah cried out, not in panic, but in something deeper. Shock. Anguish. Disbelief. In the window just above, 2 small faces appeared. Jason and Emma. Eyes wide, but not afraid. Not exactly. There was something else there, something quieter. Like they were seeing their father not as a man arrested, but as someone who had finally stood tall in a world that had been bending him. The ride to county was quiet. Nathan didn't say much. He didn't need to. They processed him quickly. No injuries, no aggression, just standard procedure. He spent 48 hours in holding. Concrete bench, fluorescent lights, a metal sink that dripped all night. It wasn't unfamiliar, not for someone like him, and in a strange way, it was easier than the days before, when he had been free but powerless. On the second morning, his lawyer arrived. Name was Callahan. Wore worn cowboy boots and a gray blazer that had seen better days. Former military himself, the kind of man who didn't waste time on small talk. He looked through the paperwork, the incident report, the footage. Then he looked up at Nathan and said, "You're fine." Nathan raised an eyebrow. Callahan went on, flat and clear. "You were on your property. No verbal threat. No direct damage to person or structure. First shot went into the air, second into soft ground. That's mulch, not even a fence post. HOA doesn't trump state law, and the state still respects a man's right to defend what's his. Worst case, you get a warning, but even that's unlikely." He closed the folder. "Now," he added, "you ready to go home?" Nathan nodded once. He was, but not in the same way as before. Marilyn Harper didn't come outside after that morning. Her front porch, once the command post of the block, stayed empty. No poodle, no sun visor, no clipboard. The wind chimes still hung by her door, but they stopped singing. Whether it was the wind or someone who tied them still, no one knew for sure. The neighbors noticed. Quietly, respectfully. Within a few days, mail began piling up in her box. Lights stayed off at night, and then, exactly a week after the incident, a sign appeared in her yard. For sale. Red letters, fresh steak, like it had been waiting in the garage all along. She never made a statement, never sent a note. She simply disappeared into the background. A silence where once there had been rules. Word traveled fast. Turns out Nathan hadn't been the only one. Over the next few days, stories surfaced. Quiet conversations at mailboxes and over backyard fences. She fined us for a grill that wasn't regulation height. She told my daughter her trampoline violated visual harmony standards. She left us a warning because our flag was slightly faded. It became clear people hadn't stayed silent out of agreement, just out of weariness. Marilyn had ruled not with authority, but with paperwork and persistence until someone finally said enough. The HOA board called a special meeting that Friday. It wasn't held at Marilyn's house this time. It was moved to the community center. Folding chairs filled quickly. Some neighbors who hadn't attended in years showed up early, just to make sure their vote counted. The outcome was swift. Marilyn Harper was removed as president of the HOA by unanimous vote. Her name was struck from board records. No debate, no drama. The new president, Tom Wilson, retired Air Force, calm under pressure, known for keeping to himself and trimming his hedges with military precision. His first order of business, effective immediately, all temporary recreational structures including seasonal pools under 3 feet are permitted without prior approval. His second, Marilyn Harper is permanently ineligible to serve on the HOA board. Simple. Direct. Fair. Nathan didn't say much about it. Didn't need to. He sat on his porch that evening with a glass of sweet tea, listening to the breeze move through the trees. Real wind. No chimes. No more letters. No more warnings. And for the first time since they moved in, Maple Ridge Lane felt like it belonged to the people who lived there, not the ones who tried to control it. It wasn't revenge. It was relief. Nathan didn't rush it. The weather had already started to cool, just a little. That late summer lull where the mornings hint at autumn, but the afternoons still carry enough sun for bare feet and backyard laughter. He waited until the timing felt right, then he drove into town and bought a new pool. Bigger this time, not fancy. Still simple, round, blue, and just deep enough for splashing, floating, and pretending you were anywhere in the world but here, which for kids was more than enough. He didn't file for permission, didn't ask, didn't notify the HOA, didn't check the rule book. He just built it right in the same spot where it always should have been. This time, no letters came. No warnings showed up in the mailbox. Instead, something else began to arrive, slowly at first. Neighbors. They started waving more, stopping to talk. A couple brought over lemonade. One family brought cookies. And then there was Rick, a retired contractor from across the street, who dropped by with 2 cold beers and a half smile. "Didn't know you had it in you," he said, handing Nathan a bottle. "Guess it takes a Marine." Nathan just nodded. Didn't need to say anything. Rick didn't expect him to. Some things didn't need words. That afternoon, Emma stood at the edge of the new pool, her sandals kicked off, toes curled slightly, unsure. Jason was already in, holding his nose and dunking under like a mini torpedo. She looked back at Nathan. He gave her a little nod. She dipped one foot into the water, then the other. Hesitant. Careful. Jason splashed her, not hard, just enough to break the moment. She gasped, then laughed, and just like that, the hesitation vanished. They were playing again like nothing had ever happened, but also like everything had changed. Sarah watched from the porch, a quiet smile on her face, arms folded around a cup of tea that had long since cooled. Nathan stayed close, not hovering, but present. He didn't need to build a wall or stand guard anymore. For the first time since the move, the house wasn't just shelter. It was home. The kind built not by bricks or fences, but by standing firm when it mattered most. By reclaiming something no rule book could take away. Joy, laughter, water. Again. The days moved on quietly. School started back up. The sun dipped sooner behind the rooftops. Nathan found himself doing little things around the house, fixing a gate hinge, repainting the porch railing, trimming the hedge Marilyn once called visually uneven. No one cared about the hedge now. The HOA was quieter. The street was calmer. Even the air seemed easier to breathe. But some habits Nathan didn't break. Every night after Sarah went to bed and the kids were asleep, he checked the cameras, scrolled through the footage. Nothing ever showed up anymore. Just a possum here, a neighborhood cat there. Still, he watched. He walked the yard sometimes too, hands in his pockets, just listening. Not because he was afraid, he wasn't. It was about something else. Principle. The Remington 870 remained in the safe. Loaded, maintained, undisturbed. Not on display, not near the door. Just there. Quiet and ready. He never forgot the weight of it in his hands that morning, or the way Marilyn's face changed when she realized the rules no longer shielded her. And while Nathan never spoke much about that moment, he thought about it sometimes. Not with regret, and not with pride. Just clarity. People like to believe justice came in neat forms, courtrooms, uniforms, signed papers. But Nathan had seen the truth, both overseas and here in the shade of suburban lawns. Justice didn't always come the way people wanted it to. Sometimes it came barefoot before sunrise, with no raised voice, only resolve. And when the world refused to protect what mattered most, a man had two choices: step back or stand up. Nathan had chosen. He wasn't proud of what he did, but if the same day came again, if someone put his children in harm's way, quietly, legally, without consequences, he wouldn't ask permission. He wouldn't wait for help. No warning, no hesitation. Because when you're a father, truly a father, there are moments where talking is over, and doing the right thing means acting when no one else will. That's not about anger. It's about duty.